Is Stacy today?
No, Sean should be here.
Or is done?
Yeah. Good. I saw, so that's to end it for. All right, we are ready to go.
You all set? All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm gonna call to order the Charlottesville Albemarle Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO Policy Board for Wednesday, June 24th at 4 p.m. meeting. And by actions down on this end, it's going to be a live meeting. Thanks, official kickoff. All right, we'll do the roll call. Who's doing the roll call for us?
I will do it. Orion is out. Supervisor Galloway.
Present.
Counselor Ostrom. Here. Supervisor Mallett. Here. Counselor Fleischer. Here. Sean Nelson. Who's outside of the door. Here's Tim. He's right outside. Stacy Lodges. Here. Christine Jacobs. Present. Ivan Rucker. Daniel Koenig. Mitch Huber.
Present online.
Could you state the reason for your virtual participation, please?
Based in Richmond, Virginia.
Wood Hudson. Julia Monti. Here. Mike Murphy.
Jason
Garland.
SB representing online.
Thanks, Jason. And Garland Williams.
Great, thank you. All right, we will move right to matters from the public. Is there anyone who wishes to give public? We have one. Anybody else? I was looking for your prayers.
I know. No comment, that's one of those.
All right, you have the podium and you have 3 minutes, and we just ask that you state your name and your jurisdiction for the record.
My name is Paul Grady. I live just outside of Crozet, at least for the next year. I have to say that I am disappointed that City Council approved the bad design for the West Main Ridge, Water, etc. intersection. I attended the public information session where that item was presented along with a roundabout option. The only problem was that the roundabout design was even worse. I have been an advocate for a roundabout at that intersection for almost 10 years. I asked one of the VDOT employees who was there what they thought of the roundabout design, and they said that it was awful. That's 2 bad designs that got presented to the public to choose between. I could create a better roundabout design, having been an amateur transportation planner for almost 40 years. When you make car movement in the city more difficult, you risk hurting your tourism industry. I have lived here for almost 60 years. I have always hated driving in the city, and I do it as little as possible. Traffic lights have never been coordinated. I hope you don't get to fund it. Anything less than a roundabout and a 2-way water street is a waste of money. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I didn't check, is there anyone online that wishes to do public comment? And no one else in person. All right, we will move to item number 3. And we have our review and acceptance of the agenda. Is there any modifications or changes to the agenda that we need to do today? Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So, second.
Moved and seconded. If all in favor would please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, great. The agenda is approved. And we will move to the April 22nd, 26 meeting minutes. Any changes or edits or concerns about those minutes? And then I'll also ask about the, well, I'll go in first. Is there a motion to approve the April 22nd, 2026 meeting minutes?
So moved.
For second?
Second.
All right, motion's made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? And those are approved. And then item number C, we have the Campo bylaws and public engagement plan revisions. There was a memo and track changes in the clean documents all provided. This is mainly language change for the CTAC decision. Is there anything else there that we need to comment on? Yes.
As a longtime member of the CTAC, before the CTAC was called CHART, our charge was members of the community and the university architect and Don Wells from VDOT, this is how long ago it was, Stacey's laughing. And this was when the group was charged with making contact with the public. Since the CTAC is supposed to be trained county staff, city staff, not members of the general public, as they seem to have some on there now, who are not highway folks or pedestrian folks, they just see. I don't know that that's a fair assignment for that. So I'll just leave that thought for others to chime in on. I know that there was some discussion about standing up an engagement group that was truly representing the public when it was needed. And so hopefully we will consider that instead of dumping more on the plate of the technical committee.
Yeah, I think the ad hoc committee was what we had, when the long range transportation plan comes around again. We have the ability to stand up an ad hoc committee for that, and then conversation about how the citizen engagement would happen as part of that process. We have plenty of leeway to have that discussion. All right, so we need to adopt the plan revisions if there are no other comments. I mean, what you're asking for, Supervisor Malik, exists in these bylaw changes, the ability to do that.
But we're still leaving all this public engagement responsibility on the staff of the two jurisdictions in the technical advisory committee, and they have a lot of work to do with it. So I just, if I'm the only one, then I'm the only one, but I don't think that that's a reasonable assignment for them, so. Maybe there won't be any, and that's, I don't know how we would function without anybody coming, so. Anyway, I don't have anything else to add.
All right, well, then I'm looking for a motion to adopt the bylaws and the public engagement plan revisions.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Those ones are approved. Very good. So we'll go to item number 4, new business. And 4A, smart scale round 7 Campo and rural projects. And Taylor's, Taylor, you switched your name on this, and I didn't know who the heck you were.
I'll introduce myself, I'm Taylor Lowry, everyone.
Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to give a brief update on Smart Scale Round 7. Oh, yes, I don't know who's sharing your screen. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so I will give an update on Smart Scale Round 7, and then I will also give an update on the pre-applications that were submitted in our rural jurisdictions in the TJPD region. This was a request that came out of our Smart Scale workshop that we had back in March. For Smart Scale updates for the MPO, on June 1st, we received screening decisions from the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment, or WIPI. When WIPI does their screening, they are looking at 3 different items. They're looking at if the projects that you submit are eligible, if they are ready to receive funding, and if they're meeting a nutrients need. All of the feedback that we received for our projects were specifically related to project readiness. This is something that we were anticipating because we knew we had some planning studies that were still in progress that weren't yet complete. We knew we still needed our resolutions of support, and we submitted those and things like that. So the notifications that we got for all 4 of our applications were that they screened out conditionally for those reasons that I stated. Any questions about that?
When will you get confirmation that we are now complete?
Once we submit all of the final documents by July 15th.
Are there details about that?
About the timeline or about
The
the,
screened out.
It's just everything gets that. Essentially, if unless you had an application that was developed previously that had everything. And it's been updated, it's screened out at this point.
So that's the normal.
Yeah, and it's just bad language.
we wish they would say screen in additional.
Yeah,
or pending the final thought, some
Yeah,
pending,
it's-
yes.
But yeah,
There's a more severe screened out.
I mean, they've got ready to
Screened
submit.
out, just being gone.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know that I've ever picked up on that before.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So as far as next steps, June 1st, the full application officially opened in the Smart Portal. So staff have been working on getting those revisions in there that were requested from WICFE and following up on the final documents and making sure that we have all of those. We did receive resolutions of support earlier this month. So Charlottesville City Council provided a resolution on June 15th, and the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors provided a resolution on June 17th. And the next deadline that we're working toward is July 15th for all of that supporting documentation to be completed for applications. August 3rd is the official final application deadline. So that's the date by when VDOT has to go in and say, yes, all of these documents are complete, and they just have to confirm and offer concurrence that our application is done. January 2027 is when we see the staff recommended funding scenario. So that's when WICFE will go to the CTB and they will present based on how the projects were funded. Here's how they recommend the ones that should be funded and the ones that shouldn't. And then June is when projects are officially selected for funding when the CTB adopts the 6-year improvement program. Any questions on this round of smart scale for the MPO?
All right.
And I also included this in here just to tee us up a little bit for a couple of the presentations that we will have later on in today's meeting. So where are we in this big process of transportation planning and funding? So I circled June for where we are as far as where we are in the smart scale cycle. So this is a 2-year cycle that happens for smart scale specifically. But outside of that, there are a lot of other processes that are also going on at the same time. And so you'll see further down in the year as you get to that nice blue color, after projects are scored, we will get ready to kick off new planning studies for STARS and for Project Pipeline. Project Pipeline is listed on this graphic. That's sort of the E logo that you see toward the right underneath the odd years. And Project Pipeline and STARS, those directly feed into the projects that we're going to be able to have ready for the next round of smart scale. So I wanted to provide this for you all kind of visually, just so you could see where we are in this timeline of the process. I have been told that selection for Project Pipeline might be a little bit earlier this year. So it says December is where the CTB will vote. That could be a little bit earlier this year, just for everyone's awareness. Any questions about this timeline? All right, now for the rural jurisdictions, for the pre-applications that they submitted. So these are for projects that are outside of the MPO's boundaries. So in Albemarle, Fluvanna, and Louisa, outside of the MPO, no pre-applications were submitted. But for Greene County and Nelson County, they each submitted 2 applications. For Greene County, the first is a Route 29 RPET project. This is a resubmission. This project addresses capacity preservation, safety, transportation demand management, and transit access needs. It also includes installing an RPET, so the restricted crossing U-turn, extending a U-turn lane, and the preliminary cost for this one was $23 million. The other project for Greene County is along US 33 and the 1050 Greencroft intersections. So the V-Trans priority needs that were identified for that location were safety improvement and transit access. This location includes a PSI segment as identified by safety data along this corridor. And this project would implement median U-turns by closing median crossings at different intersections throughout this corridor. And the preliminary cost for this project is $13.9 million.
Do you want questions at the end?
We can take them as we go.
Okay. Somewhere down there, it talks about 33 westbound to Advanced Mills South.
Yes.
What is happening? Is that one of the medians that's going to be closed? So nobody will be able to go west from there?
It's extending the turn lane there as part of it.
the northbound turn lane on Gas Mills to make more place.
It's the eastbound right turn lane onto Advanced Mills. On 33.
Eastbound, what, oh. Okay, westbound south, so right now, you're right, it's very short, okay. Is there any change in design that would encourage 18-wheelers to come down that road? Because Carrie and Michael and many staff over the years have met me in Advanced Mills for the U-turn, the hairpin turns where the trucks fall off, tip over, spill their goodies all over the road. So 4 or 5 years ago, there was supposedly an effort to talk about signage from the Green County intersection, or they used to make CDs, blank on their name, north of here, all the way to Earlysville Road. That's not suitable for trucks, similar to the one on Plank Road on 29 South. There's a great big sign that says Route 732 or whatever it is not suitable for tractor trailers. And that in itself has been very successful.
And that crossover is being closed down.
Okay. So livestock trailers going over the mountain will then have to go east to Tractor Supply and then cross over there and go west. Does that sound right?
Yep.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
For Nelson County, the first project that they submitted was along Rockfish School Lane and Route 151. This project actually met a custom V-Trans need. So when I spoke with the planners in the VDOT Lynchburg district, they described that there is a policy in the Smart Scale Technical Guide where if there isn't a V-Trans safety need noted in a location, if there have been 3 or more crashes, you can reach out to WAV and basically make the justification to be able to submit a project that addresses safety. So that's how they were able to get this project eligible to be submitted. For this project, it would install a dedicated right turn lane on the southbound and eastbound legs of Rockfish School Lane and Rockfish Valley Highway intersection. This would provide additional space to separate turning vehicles from through traffic. And the cost for this one is $2.5 million. This next project on US 29 corridor improvements, this is an RPET project. This was known as an RCI when they took it out to the board and to the public. I do want to let everyone know that the Nelson County Board decided not to submit a full application for this project, but I left it in for awareness that this was a pre-application that they submitted, but they will not be carrying this one forward. The V-Trans needs that were noted throughout this quarter were capacity preservation, transportation demand management, and safety improvements, and it also includes a PSI segment and 2 PSI intersections. The preliminary cost for this project was $19.8 million. And I believe that's the last project. Yes, that's the last slide. Were there any questions about either of these projects?
This may need an answer later from Stacy or Sean or anybody. So if an area where the rural area comes and butts up against the growth area, such as North School Road and 250, 2 whole quadrants of that are rural area, would that intersection be able to qualify for any of these rural area funds? Or if you touch the growth area, MPO area in any way, do you not qualify for that?
So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think if you are outside of the MPO boundary, you're under a different area type completely for how your project is scored. So they're still eligible for funding as long as there's a V-Trans need throughout the corridor or whatever roadway that they're doing an improvement on. It just matters like the physical location of the project. So if it's in the MPO, it would be scored using one area type B. And if it was in the rural area, it would be scored with another, who's P.
Thank you.
So I got on that one?
Yeah.
Then we are ready to move to the 4B, correct? And 4B is stars the project pipeline study process. We will be taking over
Yep. That's good. Yep. So Sharon, let me get you in for on the. Is it starting on my too?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'll think it is. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're gonna start, well, not really start a conversation, but have a conversation about kicking off our next round of study projects that are being administered through the VDOT study program. So there's two different study types that we're gonna talk about tonight, stars and pipeline studies. And I know there's been a lot of discussions about, well, how do projects end up as part scale applications? And one of the ways that they end up as part scale applications is that we start with identifying locations that will be good candidates for studies such as the ones for stars and pipeline. The important thing to know about the study programs that we're talking about tonight, Project Pipeline and STARS, is that they're both administered centrally by different VDOT or divisions under the Secretary of Transportation. The Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment works directly under the Secretary's office, and then STARS is administered through the Transportation, Mobility, and Planning Division. There are other ways to do planning studies. These are the most widely used ones that are coordinated through VDOT and through the VDOT district. Locations are identified throughout the entire planning division or district. So what that means is that we're going to talk tonight about study locations within the Charlottesville Albemarle MPO area. Keep in mind that the Culpeper district is looking at studies throughout our entire planning district, which includes not just the MPO, but the entirety of the Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, as well as the, is it Rappahannock, Rappahannock Regional Commission? Yeah. I knew somebody knew that. Yeah. So we are determining what are the needs of the locations, what is the capacity of each of the individual localities and regions that we're working within, and how do we make sure that we are providing good support for all of our local governments. And the goal of both of these programs is to support future funding applications. Typically, we're thinking of these as smart scale applications, but it can also be identifying lower cost improvements that could be added into our ongoing 6-year improvement program as, you know, projects that can be incorporated into our ongoing budgeting processes, as well as things that could be submitted through revenue sharing or federal discretionary programs. But our goal is to keep in mind that there is a goal to identify implementable projects. All right. So if you look at the program guidelines, there are separate program guidelines for STARS and there's separate program guidelines for Project Pipeline. And you'll see that they each have identified the project purpose, the goals, suggestions for who should be participating as work group members, and what the process of conducting the study looks like. So while there's some distinctions, if you read through this line by line, they follow pretty similar processes. So first of all, both programs are administered statewide, and the managing entities at the statewide centralized process are determining what is an eligible candidate for each of these studies. The purpose in STARS is defined by again with the focus on the multimodal improvements. The purpose of STARS is to focus on projects that will meet needs at locations that are identified as having high safety and congestion needs, and then the project pipeline is geared more towards identifying solutions at locations that have high needs that are identified through the statewide transportation program, which is VTrans.
So the goals of the program, the eligible locations are defined by the administering agency. Each of the programs requires collaboration, both among a wide variety of stakeholders, localities, VDOT central office, VDOT districts, other stakeholders that are identified, maybe schools or transit agencies. UVA commonly sits on our study work groups, and also cross disciplines. So you want to make sure you have your traffic operations folks, your location and design folks, your planners, your communication folks, maybe local law enforcement, and make sure that all of these different stakeholders are represented so that we're addressing as many of the considerations as possible throughout the planning process. Generally, they follow the same cycle. It's about every 2 years. There's a little bit more flexibility with STARS, but typically there's a big push every 2 years. And then both of these follow standard established transportation study processes that include both the technical or data analysis as well as public engagement. And again, the goal is to develop consensus and support decision-making to identify improvements that can be implemented either through funding applications or local initiatives or efforts working within the existing funding programs that are available during an ongoing basis.
Can I ask a quick
Yes.
question? The project pipeline is for cost-effective solutions to multimodal transportation needs. Does that, so that multimodal piece has to already be part of that area that you're studying, or if there is a desire to add multimodal to that area, it would then be eligible for project pipeline, or?
It has to be a need that is identified through VTrans in the state system. So the first step is to make sure that your identified project is sort of focused on addressing the need that is identified. So let's say that there's a safety need based on vehicle crashes at an intersection. That's not to say that if there's not like a bicycle and pedestrian need that or a desire for bicycle or pedestrian improvements to also be at that intersection, that we could include it. But we need to make sure that we're addressing the identified VTrans need at a minimum.
Okay.
And then you can add additional things to that project needed.
But that adding of additional is really better suited for project pipeline than STARS.
No,
No.
but both of them will address multimodal. You can do multimodal with both of them.
Okay.
I think part of the discussion that we'll have as we go throughout the process is it's not that you necessarily want to design a project specifically just to get as many points through a funding program as possible, but you do need to be aware of the implementability, but I don't know, is that a word?
Yeah.
Implementability.
Yeah.
Of the project as you're going through, and some of that is being aware of how projects will receive scoring points, what like the cost of the project is going to be, those kinds of things, and having a mindset of like just trying to be really pragmatic as you're developing solutions.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just still, I think the only piece maybe it will become clear, but I don't get how they differ then.
People should, so here's the thing,
Yeah.
honestly, no one in this room should care whether it's a STARS or a pipeline.
Okay, awesome, done, great.
They'll use different templates.
Okay.
They'll use different templates, one will be green, one will be
Oh,
orange.
awesome, negligible.
This
Okay.
is all that, so at the end of the day, I think this study, if it fits better in pipeline STARS, as long as it gets studied.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Results, the same thing.
yeah,
It's just a flavor of money of where it's coming.
Yep, that's
Either
it.
VDOT or OIPDOT, but
Yep.
in the end, you're still getting the same stuff.
Same, okay,
Yep.
got
And
it.
both of them prioritize, or both of them include the bike pedestrian stuff as a bonus, not as a priority.
it depends on the needs that are identified
It'd be-
and VTrans.
Okay, so V-Trans could prioritize bike ped.
They could, yeah, and again, but you don't necessarily start out the project like that. You start out the project by saying, where are the highest needs? And the statewide program prioritizes those needs. We'll say this is a priority 1, this is a priority 2, this is priority 3. You look at what those needs are. And you will try to make sure that you're getting concurrence on what the needs are as you develop your solutions. So some of that could be, there are a lot of bicycle and pedestrian needs for bicycle and transit and pedestrian accessibility. So that could be a key component of your project. But it's really based on what the data is telling us and what makes sense in terms of what can be implemented.
And how often is the V-Trans needs recalibrated?
They are updated every 2 years.
2 years, that's what I was saying.
And I think, but they're not always prioritized. The priorities aren't necessarily updated every 2 years. The priorities might be updated every 4 years.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's on a consistent schedule or not, to be honest.
If you could send a link to everybody for that, I looked all over the VDOT website for it.
It's on.
Several
the
months ago,
V-Trans.
and I could not find it.
It's interactive V-Trans, is what you're, or it's a map. It's not like a list. It's a
We
map.
can send it out to all of you.
Yeah.
I just painfully remember the process, but it was 15 years ago when Hannah did this, and they never looked at the old studies, or, I mean, it was, there we go. But anyway, hopefully it's better now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Understood. So we're going to talk not specifically about stars versus pipeline. We're going to talk about, because like you said, there's more similarities than differences between the programs. So we're going to talk about generally how they work. And both of the programs will start first of all with a framework phase. And so before we start talking about solutions, before we start data collection, before we really get into like the meat and potatoes of what the study is going to be, we start by working with all of the different stakeholders to make sure we have the right people participating in the process as part of the study working group. And we're going to clarify the project goals. So we're going to look at the V-Trans needs. We're going to look at existing like crash data. Sometimes we do a needs identification survey during this phase. And then we're also going to agree on what the scope of the project should be in terms of the technical analysis and the public engagement. We're going to make sure everybody's comfortable with what kind of modeling tools we're going to use, what the future planning horizon is going to be. Do we need to have public meetings or just public surveys? Is that sufficient? We're all going to come together. We're going to agree on that from the beginning, so we have a shared ownership of the scope of work for the planning study. And that occurs in the framework phase, and then all of the different divisions and all of the stakeholder representatives are going to sign off on that framework document after they have a chance to review it. And then we'll move into the study phase. During the study phase, this is when we start doing more of the technical analysis. We'll look at the crash history, we'll do an operational review. We'll all agree on what the growth rate is going to be based on the future planning year horizon. And that's also when we'll start looking at what are some of the potential alternatives that we could consider that might start addressing the solution. And again, this is looking at multimodal. We identify the problems. We're going to be looking at what are the solutions that we can consider for trying to improve conditions from existing conditions into the future year conditions. I want to emphasize that every time you go through this technical analysis, there's a series of trade-offs. You could have 100% of this and 25% of this, or you could have 70% of this and 30% of this. This is a process where we use the data, we use public information, and we're trying to weigh those trade-offs against each other to move forward and select which alternatives we think are going to provide like the most benefits, be the most competitive, make some of those pragmatic decisions about which alternatives we select to move forward. And so that's on the technical analysis side, and then this is also supplemented by additional public engagement. At a minimum, we will have 2 points of public engagement for every study. We will do a survey to identify the needs with the public and have the public tell us what they think the concerns are at the project study locations. And then we'll do an additional survey at the advanced alternatives phase, where we have some alternatives that we're considering and have the public weigh in with which of the alternatives they might have the most preference for. That's at a minimum. We can add additional engagement as needed. That will be determined with the study working group members during that framework phase. Any questions on that?
How long are these phases?
The overall project usually lasts probably about 18 months-ish. So the majority of the work is going to be spent in the study phase. This one's probably going to be, I don't know, 12-ish months, somewhere in that ballpark.
And so she talked about how they're trying to start a pipeline, getting it approved early, because 18 months, if you're looking at a 2-year cycle for smart scale, by the time you spend 18 months doing a study, doesn't give you a whole lot of time between the end of the study to get ready for another application cycle. So it's pretty much crash course when we're doing these things.
Since you finished one application round, you're up for the next application round. Good. All right, so the roles and responsibilities. From the central office managing agency perspective, OIP or the Transportation Mobility and Planning Division, they are going to oversee the program. They are going to administer contracts with the consultants, make sure that the consultants are meeting expectations. They will approve the study scopes for each of the individual projects. So we will all be working to scope the project, but the central office agencies are going to be making sure that the scopes fit in with what their overall program goals are. And then depending on the project and depending on availability, the central office division staff will also attend the study working group meetings as they're able to. Your main point of contact during the studies are your VDOT district staff. So that's all the people at VDOT that are in this room that you're used to working with. We will serve as the project managers. We will do most of the coordination to identify who the stakeholder working group meetings are, working group participants are. We will coordinate the review and provide the approval of any of the study deliverables that are needed throughout the process. There are different technical memorandums that we'll need to review. So we'll coordinate with the other study working group members, make sure that they're meeting all of the technical requirements for the studies, as well as any of the public information materials, surveys, flyers, social media posts, those kinds of things. We'll be reviewing the concepts, making sure that there's meet VDOT standards based on our guidelines. And we check in regularly with the consultants and provide any of the background materials that are needed. Anybody who doesn't work for VDOT that participates in these studies have additional responsibilities as well. So the most important thing is to show up, be attentive, and participate actively in any of the study work group meetings. This is usually your locality staff, could be other stakeholder agency staff, such as the universities, such as transit agencies. The project is near a school, it might include a school, or like we said, police or emergency personnel. We'll decide in the framework phase who the stakeholders are that need to be engaged throughout the process of the technical working group. The study working group members also need to be reviewing the materials and the deliverables, providing feedback to the district. The district will coordinate those responses. And then we need to rely on the study working group members to share information, both with the public and internally within their organizations. It could be that, there's a project that might involve a different division that's not regularly sitting on the study work group. And so it would be one of the responsibilities of the study work group to make sure that they're sharing information back and forth within their organizations and providing information out as needed to make sure that whatever the recommendations are that come out of the study are supported overall by the governing bodies. And then one of the expectations starting out early in the process is that these projects will result in funding applications for implementing projects. Usually that's smart scale. It can also be revenue sharing, transportation alternatives, discretionary funding grants, or like I said, we could potentially work with our traffic engineering and residencies to see if there are lower cost, shorter term solutions that we could also consider. But our goal is to identify implementable solutions. And so this just gives you the background of what the studies are, what the expectations are, high level of the process. But our next steps at this point is to review the locations that have been identified for our next round of study locations. Once there's agreement on those, we'll submit requests to conduct studies to the appropriate central office agencies. And then we'll be able to start moving forward with kicking off the studies, which we would expect to occur a little bit later this fall. So any questions at this time?
I have questions. Sorry. How often have how often has it been recommended that we go forward with a quicker, cheaper solution, the one that you mentioned last?
I think, it really just depends on the study, but I think that's not going to be the publicly facing part, because a lot of those are not necessarily going to be big projects that are going to need action from a local governing board in order to support. So it could be, for example, like updating signs or like the language on signs, or like restriping a road or something like that. So I think there's always an opportunity to do that.
Like for instance, in Orange County, they're doing a study on 522, and a part of it that we're finding out is that people are really speeding on 522, but there's no location for enforcement. There is no application place that we can head to, let's install pull. So that's something that we will collectively think about as a district and working with the county. Maybe they have some funds for us to use state forces to go out and construct a pull-off location for police to set and enforce speed. Those are like small things like that.
Got
Like the mini roundabouts we're doing. That was through state forces.
that was this kind of thing, okay. So, and are they ever coupled? So you looked at the STAR study and there's a chunk that really could just use this and, okay, and STARS can do the rest, okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, there are. Yes,
At what point in this process does it come to this body?
that needs to be defined in the framework phase as to what the expectation is for this body, city council, board of supervisors, where they need to have like updates, what their level of review needs to be, that needs to be defined in the framework.
Like, is the question you're asking, is there an official ruling needed from this body on anything
Yeah.
that's studied? No.
There's not an official rule, it's something we can decide collectively together.
Got it. Okay. So at the beginning, we say, do we want the MPO to have any input on this, or do we want the cities and county to have input on it?
I mean, I don't think that has happened in the past. I think that we can define that as part of our study process during the framework phase to establish that like what that expectation needs to be.
This was so helpful, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, well, I will. Go back to the
Thanks, Sandy. So the next item is 4C. We've got STARS project pipeline study locations. And it looks like City of Charlottesville and Ben will be first, and then we'll move to Albemarle County and Jessica. And then staff memo, I don't know. There's a separate item of 4C3, I guess I did.
All right, so I'll be presenting the city's recommendations for the next STAR studies locations. This was something VDOT engaged with us in, I don't know, Sandy, this must have been back in February, we first started talking about this. Our current STAR study that we're wrapping up was very fresh on our mind at the time. That study is the West Main and Ridge study that council adopted the application for smart scale on 15th weeks ago. So as we were looking at what's next, we were kind of trying to think of how do we build on our success from that STAR study. So naturally, the places that we looked were basically the neighboring areas, because they show up in a lot of our plans as important places that we need to take care of. So the first place I want to point to that rose to the top was Preston and McIntyre. This should be pretty familiar to all of us, both in the city and county. This location is basically the next block up from where West Main and Ridge is, and this was, you know, that west-east connection was really what we were looking at in that study. This needs to take care of how we do the north-south. This location is something that is identified in V-Transit as a need for bicycle and pedestrian and safety and operations needs. If you're a pedestrian who's crossed this intersection, you understand why. It's also identified in the city's Streets That Work plan. This may be a plan not everybody's familiar with because it's really old. We've had these needs since 2016 at the very least, and identified them as priorities since 2016. So it's unsurprising that, you know, we didn't fix anything, we still have these needs to fix. We don't have it listed here. This is also something that's listed in Move Safely Blue Ridge. So we have confirmed recently that this is still a need. We've, over the past 9 years, had 89 crashes here. Part of the reason that we anticipate that this is going to be a project that will be implementable and useful is we've got a lot of space in this intersection. We've got a lot of extra lanes, a lot of places where we may be able to make some changes. We also have a partner who owns one of the largest pieces of land on this intersection. So we may be reaching out to the county for some support on how we deal with the land around that intersection. This is one that we are anticipating that we would be the lead stakeholder involved, since it's sort of smack dab in the middle of the city. But we would obviously want the county to be engaged in any discussion that's going around with that property. As we were talking through what kind of projects that we need to prioritize, we're landing on this question of how much effort is too much for that lead stakeholder to take on. And as we were talking through that sort of pointed us to, maybe there's really only one project in the city that we can be the lead stakeholder on. And if that is the case, this is going to be our key recommendation for what that project should be. We had a second project that also rose to the top. It's the area south of the West Main and Ridge intersection. So the Monticello intersection on Ridge and the Cherry Elliott intersection on Ridge and all of the corridor in between. This is going to be a more challenging project for us to do a study on, in our opinion. It is very warranted as a project. So, we know that there are trans needs in this area. We have done previous STARS studies at West Main and Ridge. We're also doing a study of this street south of this. We also have a traffic calming study going on in the Fightful neighborhood just to the west of this. And we have a construction project at Monticello and Second just to the east of this. So having all of these different balls that we're juggling in the air all at the same time that we might want to step in and potentially study this might not be the best timing for that. We recognize that there is a need there that we've identified for over a decade and verified through Move Safely Blue Ridge. But we think this might need a little bit more time to cook before we study it and clean up some of the other projects that are neighboring to it. As we were talking through these projects, we had a couple other potential locations come to the top, things that we talk about all the time in the city as issues that we need to figure out a way to address. And that we'll probably need to come to either VDOT or federal partners to figure out funding to move forward with. The first on this list is East High Street. It's one that we identified through New Safety Blue Ridge. We have a demo project that's designed and we're looking to deploy later this summer. That one we looked at and said, just looking at the implementation question, that might have some challenges as a standalone project. Through Smart Scale, we're looking to have scoring benefits through things like congestion and access. There's not a whole lot of right of way here. There's not a lot of capacity that we're going to be able to add to this section. So our ability to get congestion scores out of just this section by itself, kind of limited. We have been talking since the tech committee meeting about how we can move forward with this section of East High Street. Later, Jessica is going to be presenting on one of the county's recommendations, which will be neighboring to that. And we're hoping that the study area for that project will be able to encapsulate this. So we won't be studying it by itself, which we thought was kind of a fraught endeavor. We'll be able to study it as part of a larger package along with the county. And so we won't have to sort of carry that burden on our own as the city. The other two that are listed here are projects that, we know that these corridors have heavy safety needs, that they are serving low-income populations that are really relying on biking and walking and transit. But these are much bigger problems than what we are probably going to be able to solve through this STAR study. There are a lot of conflicts in the Elliott area that we need to talk through sort of on a bigger scale of how that ties into the larger network. Preston, also very long corridor from 10th to McIntyre. Obviously, we need to study that. That's something that we have identified through our comprehensive planning and through our zoning change, that we need to come back into that neighborhood and do small area planning and figure out how that neighborhood's network is really going to work. I don't know that we really want to do that as part of the STAR study, since it touches on a much larger land use and economic development sort of question that the city needs to probably tackle independently of that. So our recommendation coming out of this as staff is to move forward with the Preston McIntyre as our preferred city STAR study, and then to amend the county's Free Bridge and Lower Van Top study to include some of the city's East High work. Any questions on our recommendations? Okay. Then I will turn it over to Jessica so she can share what the county's got.
And well, she said that, they're all, like, we just got our total priorities list. In the county. And when I'm talking to folks, like, when you talk like one project in the scope of all these others that you're doing, like, is the city, what's the city's total is? Forget categories of where they sit, just total list.
We don't have a total list yet, and that's something we're working on through our utility plan. So we have several lists. We have the list in streets that work, we have the list in our bike path master plan, we have all these different plans that have different lists, but we have not consolidated them into this is the one priority list that we can pull off of. So when we are going through, hey, how do we pick a project? We pull all the books off the shelf and have to sit down and have a discussion and don't have that resource that.
Is it like ballpark, like 80, like 100, like, and I'm not gonna hold you to it.
It's less than that. Our lists in streets that work are much more constrained than that. So we've saved through the ridge, but we're talking like a dozen in each of these plans, and there's lots of overlap. So I wouldn't say 80, I would say probably less than 50. But it takes work for us to figure out which of those 50 we're talking about coming right now.
Thank you.
No, we're luckily much smaller than county, so you don't have quite as much of a list.
Right, hi everyone, I'm Jessica Dimick, Principal Transportation Planner for Albemarle County. And I'm going to talk about the proposed study locations that the Albemarle County Transportation Planning Team has been discussing with VDOT. We identified several potential locations of interest, and in talking with VDOT about what locations would be good candidates for these studies, for these study processes, we narrowed it down to 3. So I'll be talking about the US 29 at Airport Road location, US 250 at Freebridge, and I-64 exit 118 at US 29. There were other locations that we considered and determined that they were not as good of a fit for these study processes. US 29 at Airport Road has been a location the county's transportation planning team has wanted to study for a long time. This location is number 6 on the PSI intersection list for the Culpeper district, meaning that of all of the intersections in the entire VDOT Culpeper district, this one is the 6th worst in terms of crashes relative to expected crashes. This intersection is experiencing a lot of traffic congestion, especially during the weekday peak hours. It's also immediately adjacent to 3 different activity centers, Hollymead Town Center, the Timberwood Shopping Center, and the North Point Activity Center. And the Employment Center of North Fork is within proximity of this location along Lewis and Clark Drive. So there's a lot of development going on and expected in the future. Facilities for bicyclists and pedestrians are lacking, and there are no crosswalks for pedestrians to cross the street. The county wants to develop in a way that encourages transit. The regional transit vision plan, transit is envisioned to serve this area. And as part of the US 29 STARS study that's going on right now, from Woodbrook to Hydraulic, the consultant did a transit propensity analysis and determined that even in that location, the development patterns are pretty far off from being ready for transit. And so part of the items we'd like to address is to figure out how we can organize ourselves to encourage growth that is supportive of transit. So we think that this would be a good place to do a study to look at all of those challenges and develop solutions that work to meet the various goals. The yellow circle indicates the intersection of 29 and Airport Road would be the focus, but we would like to look at all of the area in the dark blue dashed line. How do those intersections
along 29 work together, as well as east-west on Airport and Profit. On the east side, the extension of Worth Crossing north of Profit Road to serve as a parallel facility would be something to consider. And VDOT is working on the design for the missing link of the connector of Berkmar Drive to Lewis and Clark. Also, the county is considering this area as one of the first locations to do their activity center planning for. And so it's possible that the activity center planning effort and this VDOT or pipeline study could, if not align in their timing, at least mutually inform each other. This slide simply shows the VTrans needs on the left side. You can see that at the intersection of 29 and Airport Road, it is a construction district priority 1 location, and there are priority 1 and 2 segments all along this corridor. And I mentioned the intersection PSI number 6 at the intersection of Airport and 29, but there are also other intersections and a segment that have been identified as having potential for safety improvements. The second location is.
Jessica, could you go back?
Yes.
This is a good example of a question for perhaps VDOT or for whoever might know the answer, if there is one. So there's multiple things going on in the study area, as Jessica just illuminated. In the north side development, I think there's a lane expansion happening prior to and then past the intersection as they continue running north on 29 that they're doing as part of that project. When you decide or put whatever data in to determine that this is a good study area, are you already theorizing what what's already in motion and funded is going to do? And does that impact it, or are you just looking at the current conditions justify? Because this is a great picture where those 2 red sections are on the left diagram. Since Berkmar doesn't continue, that's where all the Berkmar spill out happens. And once it goes up to Airport Road, it'll continue all the way up to Lewis and Clark Drive. So I expect that dynamic will worsen up there. Or get worse. I don't know if worse is the word. Worsen that.
Let me see if I can take a stab at this.
It's a word in West Virginia, I know that. And I'm from there, not knocking on West Virginia. But you see what I'm trying to get at? So like there's already solutions coming that's going to impact what exists. Not necessarily improve.
So that will be done when the study, if the study moves forward, we take into account all the TIAs that have been done in the area to project the traffic where it's gonna be at and say the improvements that are supposed to be with it. So it's all modeled with what it's supposed to be there and planned to be in the future. Does that make sense?
So the roundabout at Berkmar or at Airport Road and the continuation of Berkmar, it's already trying to model how that traffic will flow through there.
Not here, but
In the study.
in the study in Wood.
In the study of wood.
Because the horizon year is what, 20 or 30 years out?
Like 20 years out, yeah.
So anything in the pipeline that is planned within those 20 years should be accounted for in the study growth. When you look at it and analyze it as being complete though.
And then it would only account for that approved land use. Things,
Yes.
not proposed or pipelines.
Yep.
I mean, pipeline and haven't got final decision.
Yep.
All right, no.
This might be something that I should know, but what is the activity area plan? What does that look like?
So in AC 44, there were,
That's our
the recently adopted comprehensive plan. How many activities? 50 some?
Around 30.
30 some activity centers identified. And those are envisioned to be the centers where future growth is concentrated. The county is talking about undergoing a planning process, those activity centers. I might invite Tanya to say a little more.
Sure, so we've looked at 3 different locations across the county to start, that activity center planning. So this will be more like a small area plan, a little bit more detailed focus than you might expect from a master plan per se. So we'll be looking at land use, we'll be looking at housing, we'll be looking at economic development, as part of those plans.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
All right. So the second location we've talked about is US 250 at Free Bridge. And the county staff are interested in studying this location for multiple reasons. The Pantops area includes multiple activity centers for future growth, including the regional center at the Pantops of Lower Pantops, which could include the redevelopment of the Pantops Shopping Center. And that could accommodate significant growth. There are other activity centers nearby, like Ravenna Ridge and Peter Jefferson Place, and redevelopment opportunities with State Farm. So this is a clear area of growth for the county within biking distance and served by transit. The county is actually considering South Pantops as possibly one of the first activity center plans that they would do. And our team actually facilitated an activity with our county's organizational leadership team to explore the strengths and weaknesses of this area. And congestion, specifically congestion limiting the potential for growth, was raised in at least the group that I facilitated as the #1 issue. So it's about congestion, but it's not just about congestion. It's also about how do we make meaningful bicycle and pedestrian connections, and what are the opportunities for transit. Improvements will be made in the next 2 to 3 years at the intersection of 250 and Stony Point Road with the Smart Scale project that is in design. But we want to look at how this intersection functions with the adjacent intersections. And as Ben mentioned, the city also has interest in continuing the area along High Street. So it seems like this could be a good candidate for to study. The bonus is that it crosses the city and county line, so it's an opportunity for us to really dig in and work together to address the issues at this location.
Is that so early that there are no scoping things yet? As far as the geographical limit, for example, or this is the second bridge on the list, what is, and maybe it's too early, so.
No,
Do you want to take that?
yeah, these aren't scoped right now, so we would have that discussion as part of that framework phase before we would start the actual study. We would all agree on what needs to be included as part of that, so.
And anywhere in the considerations, or is there anything for the bypass going west? Or is it just at High Street and Northeast?
Do you mean?
The fact that the bypass is standing still for hours a day, because that makes people like me, who has to go to a meeting at Spot Now, come down carefully at 5 miles an hour down East High and down and get in the right slip lane, go over the bridge and take a right. But so I'm not helping the traffic on East High Street, but I also can't use the other one because it's not going anywhere. So the limitations are just so great on the lanes on the Free Bridge that it's just standing. So I don't know where that fits into the overall consideration, if at all.
I will say that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have this be a joint city-county, to make sure that we are looking at the intersections on both sides of the river, both sides of the bridge. Great.
Jessica, the dotted line for the study area on High Street, or I guess Ben, maybe you know this. Don't we want it to go further down?
Yes, and
Okay.
the
Slide was made before that.
yeah,
Oh,
this
okay.
is the slide that's presented to the exec committee, and we've had some discussions since then.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Awesome.
As far as V-Trans needs go, there are priority 1 and priority 2 needs identified.
And of note, the bicycle access need shows up as very high, both along 250 and along East High Street. Further emphasizing, we think this would be a good candidate.
Can I ask another question about the activity center plans for this area? This is just because I'm not fully aware of the county's process. But if you're doing an activity center revision of this space, would that include, you mentioned land use, would that include like, I don't know what the current zoning is for this, but like rezoning this, so instead of all this parking lot car dealership, it is more housing, which would then alleviate some of that congestion. Is that something that's under consideration? Is that the type of thing that would happen in an activity center study?
We do expect that we'll need to update our plum or our future land use map. We have not considered, if we would need to rezone. So I think we'll have to determine
That's
now.
part of the discussion.
It would be part.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
The last location that we think is a good candidate is I-64 exit 118 at US 29. There is a project pipeline study that is currently underway. And as part of that study, VDOT is developing a VISIM model, not just to look at the interchange, but all the way up to, through including Fontaine on US 29 to just south of the Ramsett Ivy Road and also along I-64. So this would simply be a continuation of the project pipeline study. It was interesting, I was doing some historical research on county project prioritization processes. And back in 2015, right after Smart Scale was first created, the county's planning team developed their first, as far as I could find it, comprehensive prioritization list. And this location was number one on that list in 2015. So the county is supportive of continuing this study to develop feasible, practical solutions that will work for them. In addition to the interchange capacity, safety deficiencies, and the regional network demand and travel patterns that have already been documented in prior studies. Of note is the park and ride that exists on Teal Lane, just off of 29 south of the interchange. We would like to include that as part of the study, potentially having better defined parking, looking at ways to serve this with transit. And then finally, the SEEG development plan includes a new traffic signal at 29 and a pedestrian crossing across 29. And we would like to look at ways to connect pedestrians across 29 and further to the east, potentially under or over 64 and connecting into the Granger property. And just making further pedestrian and bicycle connections. So we think this is an opportunity to explore pedestrian and bicycle connections in addition to the operations and safety issues at the interchange. It has a very high capacity preservation needs in VTrans, and this segment is number 6 in the PSI segment list for the VDOT Culpeper District. We have discussed other ideas for locations.
Was that a question? Hold on. Can I go back one quick second? Wait, how did? This is not what VDOT was studying and decided not to study. It is, right?
Yeah, we weren't ready for this round of Smart Scale.
Okay, so is this one of the ones that are split into 2 studies kind of thing? I mean, how come it hasn't before?
Oh, it's been studied a lot of times.
Since 1966, yeah.
It's just trying to figure out where's a practical solution to a really difficult problem to solve. And it's like that PSI location, I'm hoping it's gonna go away because I think that is attributed to the lefts going to the ring, which is being handled under the Fontaine project.
Okay, Okay. So since STARS came out in 2015, it's also been part of studies then too.
But I don't think we have done a study that includes the interchange as far as up to Ivy to look at this as a system as
Okay.
opposed to independent sections.
Got it, okay.
So there may be things we can do on 29 to help with the issues at the interchange and vice versa.
Got it, okay, thank you, sorry, that was, I got it now.
Other locations that we discussed but determined were not ideal fits for this study process include several of those listed on the screen. And we are talking with VDOT central office, particularly the statewide pedestrian and bicycle coordinator, David Cook, to study South Pantops Drive and Greenbrier Drive through the roadway reconfiguration study process. That looks at between the curves or edge of pavement, what can be done in terms of restriping or other lower scale modifications to try to find pedestrian and bicycle facility solutions. Both of those were on the paving list for the next year, so we're going to try to squeeze in the study to come up with some solution that can be then implemented with the repaving. So with that, I'll take any further questions.
South Pantops is like 6 lanes wide, so there's lots of room to do some creative things there to redirect who's going there.
Thank you, Vic.
Only because Hillsdale is on there, I just want to note that I commute up and down Hillsdale by bike, and the new roundabout's great, so.
Good.
So great,
Thanks, Steve.
thank you.
I was wondering, I said, wow, is it done? Is the roundabout complete? I've been avoiding it because of the dates that I thought.
I went through there yesterday.
Now we go, where'd you go today?
They haven't, I think the rain stopped them from officially striping it, but it's in the configuration.
I mean, literally, I've just been like, oh, they're rerouting. I'm just looking at that until it's.
I literally drove up there yesterday.
I've never been riding through it on the way home.
People are loving it.
Yeah, I've seen that. Some of the start unusual.
Yeah, that was yesterday.
Yeah.
And then
Like I said,
yeah.
Next week it'll be in the news with only bad stories. That's how it goes.
Well, I know that the people that live over in that area are thrilled. Because it's been a long time coming to get. Some items there. All right, so the next item for D.
Chair Gallo.
Yes, did I miss something?
So this was a item for action today.
Oh, little asterisk.
Yes, and so the staff memo that was included in the packet was just a concise sort of summary of the action that's before you all today. We are looking for a vote on the candidate study locations to recommend to carry forward with VDOT and OEC for the next round of STARS and pipeline studies. And so you all received presentations from city and county staff on those today. The only caveat that I will add is that we have been communicated with to hear that the program capacity of STARS or Project Pipeline will only allow for one of the projects in the city of Charlottesville to be able to be completed. And so there is a draft motion for consideration in the packet with the caveat, for you all to have the discussion on what that one Charlottesville project should be to carry forward.
So with the motion with the or, we can decide that later.
Oh, no, the word is today.
The or is today, okay.
So the draft motion for consideration is looking for a motion to move that the Charlottesville Albemarle MPO Policy Board approve the following candidate locations for consideration. The upcoming STARS and Project Pipeline Study Cycle, US 29 at Airport Road, US 250 at Freebridge, I-64 exit 118 at US 29. And Preston Ridge McIntyre intersection or Ridge Corridor from West Main Street to Cherry Avenue.
So moved.
Wait, do we put or right
And now
now?
we'll discuss.
Yeah, use the word.
Side door.
Which of the projects in the city?
Oh, did you say we have to decide the or?
Yes.
No, misunderstood. I thought you wanted the or in there so that it covered which decision list. So you want the Preston Ridge McIntyre blank.
That's what we would recommend, the Preston Ridge McIntyre.
Alright, so I'll amend my motion and get rid of or Ridge Corridor from West Main Street to Cherry Avenue. Well, I didn't even make the motion, I'm calling for that as some motion.
I move corrected motion.
Preston Ridge McIntyre intersection.
And did I hear a second as well? Alright, if all in favor would say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Very good. Motion is on, thank you. Sorry, I missed that. I missed the asterisks. Then 4D, US 29 STARS study update. Not to be confused with any other STARS study update.
Let's see.
They're all running together.
Yeah, I want to.
So fancy justice.
Yeah, that was
Alright, it's been a little while since we've given an update on where we are in the current US 29 STAR study, so I am going to, go through this high level, and then if there are specific questions, we can get into this. As you recall, though, this study is broken up into two separate studies that are running concurrently. So we have one that is the US 29 corridor from Hydraulics Woodbrook, and one that is focusing more on the bypass area, going a little bit south, but they meet in the middle. So what we have been doing is that we've still been working through phase one of this study. Yeah, sure. Oh, it's not sharing.
Let's share it, but it's not advancing. Let's see.
Let me see if I'm getting my quizzes right. So this started in 2024.
Yes. Late 2024.
Yeah, I was about to say that now.
I think it might have officially kicked off in like December, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. So what we've been doing behind the scenes is going through preliminary alternatives. So what this means is that we did all of that data collection that we talked about early on, and then we started brainstorming. What are different alternatives that we could consider at some of the key locations where we've identified that there are needs? We started putting together high-level concepts. We did a screening review. So there are different types of analysis you can do. One of them is just putting numbers into a spreadsheet and basically saying, well, these different types of intersection controls work. Well, this different kind of interchange control works. This is really just to give you sort of an indication on, does it look like there's any viability to this improvement or not? And it helps you narrow down the number of alternatives that you can do further, more advanced analysis on. So we're doing all of this with our preliminary alternatives and started narrowing these down to our advanced alternatives, which were projects that demonstrated that they could be feasible based on that high-level screening analysis, and started moving those forward to do some additional analysis to see, do they work when we do actual modeling and look at what they would look like operationally. Do they work in terms of, would they fit geographically into the area, those kinds of things. So we've been narrowing down all the initial alternatives to our advanced alternatives. That's the part that we're here now. We've had meetings with the study work groups to make sure that the advanced alternatives would be generally consistent with goals that have been established by the localities. And what we are getting ready to do right now is to take the advanced alternatives that have been identified and prepare public surveys so that we can get public feedback on these advanced alternatives to see where public opinion lies on what improvements the public may be willing to support. Once we get through that public input survey, our next step will be to go back and work with the study work group to identify what the preferred alternatives would be, and those will become recommendations that could potentially go into funding applications, or determine if there are opportunities for some of these lower cost implementation strategies. So that's where we are right now. Yes. Okay. All right, so just as a reminder, this is what the first corridor scope looked like. We're looking again from Hydraulic up to Woodbrook. We started looking with 10 primary intersections and then did additional data collection at another 6 intersections. So there was a lot of data collection along this corridor. And and we established what our goals were going to be. So, from a statewide perspective, there were VDOT goals. 29 is a corridor statewide significance. We need to make sure that we're maintaining throughput along the corridor, reducing congestion, or at least making sure that we're able to continue processing the amount of traffic that it processes now. But we're holding that hand in hand with the locally identified goals for the corridor, which is that this is an important corridor for placemaking in Albemarle County. There are high density land uses on either side that need to be connected across 29. And we wanted to make sure that with the local and regional goals to improve transit services throughout the area, that we were making sure we would consider what that could look like in the future. And so we were trying to put all of these goals together and considering those all equally as we were developing our preliminary and advanced alternatives. We started off with about 15 different recommendations. The corridor was pretty challenging to get through because there were so many options to start with. So it was a little bit overwhelming. So our consultants developed this matrix to sort of help evaluate the trade-offs between different alternatives that could be considered at each of the intersections that were being studied. And from there, going through this additional review of the preliminary alternative, we narrowed it down to about 8 or 9 advanced alternatives that we thought could be implemented moving forward and would help address the identified needs in the early part of the project. So a lot of the improvements are really focusing on reducing some of the turning movements that are occurring at certain intersections. So we're looking at things like through cuts, which would eliminate the through movements at intersections. So people at those intersections would be able to turn right or left, but not go straight through, or the reduced conflict intersections or R cuts. Which again would eliminate left turns from the side streets onto the main line. It would still allow left turns off of 29, wouldn't allow left turns off of the side streets onto 29. These kinds of improvements would give more green signal time to the through movements along the 29 corridor, so it would maintain and improve that throughput. And then they also have the added benefit of they would accommodate improved pedestrian crossings. So it helps meet both of those established goals of increasing the connection between the two sides of 29, as well as meeting the statewide goals to maintain the throughput on the 29 corridor. We also looked at what was happening with some of the lane transitions that were occurring related to the Ryan Road overpass. And so one of the things that we're looking at is how can we help vehicles get positioned appropriately so they're not going under the Ryan Road overpass and then merging when they come out the other side to try to position themselves to turn right or left, and instead of getting in position before they get to the overpass. So we've identified some opportunities to improve signage and also potentially looking at a median barrier that would prevent people from merging across the lanes once they go through the underpass. These were not moved forward initially, but based on the information we got at the last study work group, there was support to at least move those forward to get public comments on whether or not there would be support for the alternatives. As we put the surveys together, we're going to be putting together sketches of what each of these alternatives would look like. And then we're going to put together a matrix. Oh, I don't know if I can use the mouse. A matrix with the star system to help survey respondents sort of understand what the relative distinctions might be between different alternatives at one location. So this is just a way to help provide context for survey responders. For the sake of just managing the time, I wasn't going to go through each of the improvements individually, but if there are specific questions, we can bring those up and look at those.
So just a quick question about the grid. There were 16 intersections or places on the original map to address. And so this means that of those 16, these are the 2, 4, 6, 8 to get chosen for some kind of intervention.
Yeah, this is where we identified either that there were issues at this intersection that we could correct. Or that could potentially be benefited, or like some of the intersections just either would benefit from these other places having improvements. Or it's that you have to leave some of the intersections accessible to accommodate like vehicles that want to turn left, they have to turn left somewhere, so you have to prioritize where you're going to limit some of the turning movements and direct those to other intersections.
And so the 8 that weren't selected are being left alone.
Correct.
But I think that information is still there, should the county want to do or look at other improvements along that corridor, they've got information now to help with decisions in the future.
The other thing that I'll mention is that as we worked through the study, one of the early alternatives was to use Hillsdale as a parallel route to 29, so you would redirect some of the traffic off of 29 onto Hillsdale. As we went through the study with the study work group, the preference seemed to be to try to not redirect the traffic to Hillsdale, but to try to keep the improvements focused along 29. And so we did not continue to move forward with discussing solutions around Hillsdale. But one of the things that we determined since the technical committee and getting the feedback from the technical meeting discussion is that we will include on the survey, not improvements along Hillsdale necessarily, but the shared use path along Hillsdale to provide the bicycle and pedestrian accommodations parallel to US 29.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's what I do, because I commute all the way up to Woodbrook and behind Lowe's on my bike, and so it is it's an interesting route that I have to take, but when I get to the Hillsdale shared use path, it's like a really
Sure.
Yeah, so having more of that would be great. The thing that I was kind of curious about was spot number 14, the Rye Road Fashion Square Mall intersection. Because that is traffic backs up along Rye on either way, and then there's people wanting to cross that, and there's a big flat space there, and so I was stuck at the light there today. And curious about like what is the math behind whether or not a roundabout would work there?
Yeah, so that was included in the scope as like a supporting intersection. So it was never our intention necessarily to focus on an improvement at that intersection, but it was kind of intended in case there was an impact at that intersection or we needed to do something at that intersection. We didn't look specifically at evaluating improvements at 14. I will say that I think, at least in terms of smart scale, that location by itself doesn't demonstrate a high level of need. So it would be looking at, is there another funding opportunity that would make sense to do it there? But we certainly can see where there would be some benefits to an improvement there.
Thanks.
Well, then but in the Hillsdale realignment would happen behind Fashion Square Mall at the intersection before 14. With also a roundabout treatment. Because that's the entrance to the shopping center. So there's other projects in play that the county could be going after that's outside of the scope that impacts those 16 things.
Sure.
And the roundabout just took care of number 12. So there's things down there that are happening even outside of this. That it could impact, what the study is. My other question was on you confused me because and it might have just been I was looking at the Woodbrook left turn, the railroad weave to the Woodbrook left turn, but you were saying going under the underpass.
Right. So one of the concerns is that
I know, my understanding of the concern are people traveling west on Rio, turning right to go north on 29 and then take the left at Woodbrook.
That is also,
that creates the weave of those coming under.
Correct.
So, and this goes to an earlier conversation months ago about the weave that happens because folks are coming up and they get past Hilton Heights Road before they encounter a sign that says you need to be in the left turn lanes to go through.
Correct.
And I made the point that if the signage was a mile or two earlier, people have the room to start making the maneuvers before they're past Hilton Heights and slam into the two lanes. And this is also like where, well, if you're traveling west on Rio Road. And there's just some signage that says Rio Hill Shopping Center straight. Versus turning right. Like I never turn right to go into Kroger, even Sunday morning when there's no traffic. Go right across, because it's just faster to go right across, take the right on Berkmar and enter through Woodbrook from Berkmar. So, and a lot of local people who live in that area do that pattern. Why? Because I see them and I happen to shop on the same schedule as other people that live on it. And so that's where I'm like, we're spending lots of money on huge studies. To factor in huge treatments where I think signage alone. Could be a low grade, low expense item that could change behavior in similar fashion to this modified roundabout that went into Hillsville Greenbrier. That could be tried, and if it works, wow.
Yeah, we do have signage identified as well.
That says go to Rio Hill and not take a right and head north on 29.
I don't know if it says that specifically, but we can include, I mean, I don't know what it specifically would say. We can make sure that the recommendations include that. Right now, we're just getting ready for the public engagement. We are not establishing recommendations right now.
The study.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that there are sometimes low cost things that just step back. And I understand data and quantitative data and all of that. But sometimes we just have to go. What's human behavior doing? Just like everybody finds the easiest way to go. And if they don't know that's the easiest way to go, the signage helps them. And once they do it a few times, they're like, holy crap, this is fast. Just like I learned to do that, knowing the traffic patterns of crossing over and living with. And I'm just watching people that are familiar there. I don't need a study that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to tell me that some better directional signage properly placed to give people time to do what humans do, they'll do it. Now, okay, you might want to debate that point with me, and somebody can, I suppose.
No, I think we also give those recommendations and we look at them separately.
Okay, but a sign can be put up in 3 months. Well, I guess I've been through putting a sign up with beat up. So I'm gonna correct you. But a sign shouldn't take 12 to 15 months to be put up.
And it depends on what type of sign. If we're talking about a ground mounted sign, that's a small sign, but if you're talking about a large gantry level that's on an ancillary structure that's got to go across 29. That's a big.
But there are some of those now.
They're already there, they just need to be changed.
And that's what we talked, that's what some of the recommendations are, to change those signs.
We talked about this in this room like 2 years ago, and we all referred to the fact that in a month during COVID, all this new information was put up there so that go here if you need to get to these 15 stores. Now we just need new information on the signs that are there and to move them back in both directions, north and south, way beyond where they are now. I drive this all the time, and I will tell you, there are hundreds of people per hour who go Guayo and go down slowly down that slip lane and creep across to the left side, and there's no reason not to. I mean, I don't choose to because I go across to the hills to Berkmar because that's the road I've been supporting system down. And it's fabulous and it has lots of pedestrians and it's great. But it doesn't. I think you can't do anything about the insanity of the General Assembly, but if we could have speed cameras, we would take care of all of this because people going 35 would not have these problems and we would be safer everywhere we went.
I'm not trying to undermine or undercut what this study's trying, because the treatments maybe needed and are bigger, but in the meantime. There are low cost, low effort things that are there that need to be better placed.
Sure.
Or like Ann said, the information change that I think could be incredibly helpful. In a world where you're looking at a locality that knows that we have the 169 projects on our list. And it's going to take forever to get through them all. That if we could find solutions that are low cost, low effort for everybody, that those should be tried. I don't.
Yeah.
And even if it's just the county being able to say, we'd like to do X, Y, and Z. Then we run into the barriers of making that happen, and knowing how long it takes to get engineers to sign off on signs and colors and sizes, but these could be added to where they're already located.
Yeah, I understand.
You don't have to
No,
respond, Sam. I'll leave it
I understand what
rhetorical.
you're saying.
I'll keep bringing it up because I know, I don't remember the meeting. Specific to the point of where the current signs that talk about. After you pass Hilton Heights Road, it starts telling you what to do.
Mhm.
Those signs need to happen before you get to the road.
Right. I guess one of the things that I'll say, not to answer your specific point, is that we're not precluding low cost solutions as part of the solution. And I think, and we're also not finalizing the recommendations right now. We just want to get public feedback, keeping in mind that you put a sign up, it takes 18 months to 2 years. Well, and maybe that's, I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know, depends on the kind of sign. But the study, you know, we don't want to go back and do another study if we find out that there's still something in addition. So then we have the study that has an additional longer term solution that's already identified too. That doesn't mean we have to start with a longer term solution. So I don't want it to feel like these are precluding.
I'll concede your
Yeah.
point, but we also don't need studies for every damn decision.
Million.
But
Sure.
that's the question, is there a mechanism to do that without a study?
I thought it was bringing it up for suggestion. Now, this one's new, the signage for the Rio Hill, but the signage for the traffic moving, which wasn't, I didn't see on here. The southbound traffic and the weave issues from Woodbrook to the Rio 29th intersection. Now, you've got the number up there.
Northbound.
Yeah, we do have some
You
findings.
got 7 and 8, so I'm assuming it's included somewhere between 7 and 8 in the details of the study, the content of the study. But the south, that was brought up by y'all at some prior point.
Yeah, we do have some of those lower cost sign improvement types of recommendations that are also included in the study. That wouldn't necessarily go out for public comment because it's not, like you're saying, it's not a project. That would need to be an application. It's something to be coordinated with traffic engineering and the residency. But it's something that is identified as an opportunity in the study.
So it sounds like process wise for a sign movement, that, I saw Carrie online, we'll add it to Carrie's list, is that something we bring up to Carrie when she becomes before the board? Hey, we'd love this sign to be moved a mile earlier, a mile north on 29, is that, and I'm asking like legitimate, like, okay.
Yes.
I'm not gonna ask the study people to go move my sign.
But it helps that the recommendations are in the study to move sign.
Well, I get it, but I mean, really.
I mean, and honestly, this whole conversation came up from the stakeholder group. So, I
Which
mean,
was the technical people in the city and county.
Yeah, I think from having sat in those meetings, there's even, variations on what people think the sign should say.
yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
So these things are being discussed. They're very complex conversations, I would say. But what about in regard to this, do we ever just add signage in another location instead of moving it from one location to another? Is that an option? I don't know how expensive signage is, but
All depends on the size of the sign and the demonstrated need for it.
Which is the study.
And there's a difference between signs that give locations of roads versus signs that give locations of destinations of places, because we do not put those signs. That's the Todd's program. We don't do that. And it sounds like we need a mixture of both.
Yes.
I will be happy to take this feedback back to our consultant team and our study work group, many of whom are studying in this urban area.
And is there a consultant who's also working on this who's from out of the area, or is there, are these all local people who drive the roads themselves every day?
So the consultants, the primary consultants are not in this area, the sub-consultants are locally based.
But the prime consultant that's doing this has done studies in this area, and I'm pretty
Confident.
they're pretty good.
I guess I was struck by all the white circles on Hillsdale. Because since 2002, Hillsdale was the parallel road while we were waiting to get Berkmar put in. And it's considered inconsequential, and that really shocks me because people drive it slowly, bike on the sidewalks or the paths or whatever, and so this This just seems to show a lack of awareness about what's the reality on the ground is all I see. I don't see the other stuff, but I certainly see the reality on the ground.
I have a design question. When you show this for the public comment, which is your next step, do you show these stars that say there will be minimal to no change?
This is just to show like how the scale works. So the scale is gonna show that
Okay.
if there's 2.5 stars, that's neutral.
Oh,
It's not
this is your key. This is
yeah,
your key.
it's not
Okay.
making it better
Thank
or
you.
worse, sorry.
I was like, that would be really disappointing.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, so each of the improvements will have its own stars rating associated with it. This is just sort of to show like what
Got it.
it looks like and how to read it.
Thank you. That was literally related to this content on the slide. So, and then next question about the showing it to the public. Is there ever a simulated video of what it looks like? What we usually show flat 2D engineering like drawings, and I think that's really hard for the public to understand.
There may be like some standard graphics and visuals of what a treatment would look like, but not specific to the area. That makes sense.
That used to be part of long range transportation plan. We had all the little things and the little yellow dots flying all over the place.
That's the model.
The modeling with that was
Yeah.
quite helpful, actually.
I mean, I think if needed, we could provide that. I don't think we would start with that though, because it would be a pretty intensive effort to make that available as part of the public, and it wasn't scoped up for it. Yeah. Yes.
Thanks, Debbie. I just wanted to clarify something you were talking about, and I brought up that I was also confused by the eliminating the V from the Rye Road overpass to the Woodward left turn. Are these folks coming from Rio, turning right to go north, and then needing to go left to get to Lowe's?
Yes.
Yes, some of them are, and I think it's happening both ways, so we can improve the directional signage, for people that are going under the underpass as well as for people who are coming off of Rio Road.
And so there would be a barrier on 29 all the way to Woodbrook Drive from Rio so that you could go left. And so then it would force people to either go straight on Rio to go up Berkmar or to turn right on Woodbrook, do a U somewhere in the neighborhood and then come back to cross that way.
Yeah, it would force them to find an alternative route.
Okay. So when you say both ways, you're talking about, so maybe this is what I was confused about, the underpass, not the left turn, but trying to turn right into Woodbrook.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah,
So now you're getting the Woodbrook neighborhood off before Rhino. To go up over the separated interchange, and take the right onto Woodbrook.
correct. Yeah. It helped us with this sense. And you're right, probably the people who like live there and go that way all the time know how to position themselves before they get there.
I don't believe the behavior is to go up over the interchange to turn right into Woodbrook.
Sure.
The behavior leaving Rio to go north and then turn left definitely exists.
Sure.
But I don't think people have found, because there's a light up at the top of it.
Mhm.
So that would have to be a forced behavior change.
Sure, yeah. Any other questions? The corridor question.
But the U at the Duncan works great.
We'll put that on the sign too.
If you come out of Carsbrook, depending on the turn, not Carsbrook, if you turn onto 29 at certain times, you can't make the left maneuver, so you have to go to the light, then make the left. If you're going in Duncan, and then do the U back up to Chick.
So the graphic should be a sprinkled donut.
Yes.
Just if we're talking signs.
Yeah.
I think we're talking like roundabout, just need to make a new temporary roundabout dunk.
I feel like Duncan would get behind this again.
Do we have a sponsorship opportunity?
Alright, so a similar process at the interchange area. This one isn't as nice of a straight line, but we're looking at basically from hydraulic. Looking at the connection to the bypass and then also going south on Emmett Street. We did for the analysis, we went over to the Barrackshire interchange, but we're not really looking at improvements at interchange. That's to make sure that we're considering impacts at the Barrackshire interchange. So again, the goals were similar, reducing congestion on the bypass. Again, these are corridors of statewide significance. Improving safety, improving the bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. And again, making sure that we are considering what the future transit services throughout the region will look like, and making sure that any improvements that we move forward with would be able to accommodate that future enhanced transit throughout the city area. So we had fewer alternatives here. We started off with about 9 or so different alternatives, looking largely at different ways to improve the bypass interchange at the Emmett Street and hydraulic, as well as some improvements on the Angus Road intersection. And so once we got through the advanced alternatives reviewed and worked through the different alternatives with the city work group, we narrowed it down to about 6 different improvements that we are going to be moving forward for public comment.
Hey Sandy, can I
Yeah.
get through real quick? This is just some lingo I wanted to double check. Back a couple slides, it says do not preclude future enhanced transit on 29. Is enhanced transit like either a dedicated bus lane or bus rapid transit or light rail or something like that? Is that means?
Yeah, it's really, yes, it's looking at improved transit service, whether that's additional stops, whether that's a dedicated bus lane, whether that's increased frequency. So as Jessica mentioned earlier, one of the things that the study found is that the land use development density ridership, all of their signs aren't pointing towards the like proclivity to have like some of this like rapid bus transit types of services on 29 currently. And so the recommendation is not focused around transit. We just want to make sure that if the region is able to move towards being ready for that increased transit services in the future, that nothing we're doing right now will make it more difficult in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so we're looking at about 6 different alternatives that we're going to move forward for the southern portion of the study area for the public to weigh in on. I will say that while we're looking a lot at the different things that we can do at the hydraulic and the US 250-29 bypass intersection. I think most of the excitement and support within the study work group is really focused on this Hillsdale Drive Southern extension. There are lots of opportunities for this to provide a lot of the benefits that is supported. There's a really high demand for movements at the hydraulic and bypass. So a Hillsdale extension will allow some of those movements to be dispersed to another intersection, as well as support better multimodal connectivity throughout that area south of Hydraulic Road in the city. So that ended up being one of kind of the operating principles that was used to determine whether or not other advanced alternatives should move forward, is whether or not those would potentially be compatible with the Hillsdale Drive extension. But otherwise, these are the improvements that we're putting forward for public comment. And again, the goal will be to get the public comment back, look at those side by side with the technical analysis, and then start working towards identifying what the preferred alternatives are going to be. Are there any other questions?
Could you explain what eliminate the westbound on and off ramps at
Yes,
Hillsdale means?
yes. And if I knew how to use this, I could probably pull up a slide. But it would be redirecting those movements to the Barracks Road interchange. So you would actually close some of the ramps on Emmett Street and redirect those to other ramps.
To go south, to go north?
This is the one where you're coming westbound and it dumps you right in front of Best Buy. It's that ramp. So we wouldn't need that ramp anymore if you're getting off the bypass at Hillsdale Drive, which is,
Oh, sorry, I have the back road, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that, sorry. But actually closing some of those ramp movements, those directions.
That was a similar question, is because I didn't have a chance to go find if there's visuals. Because it was tracking as I read it, like, oh, some of this is seemingly makes sense, but I didn't know if I was for sure thinking of the right spots. Because there's so much happening down there. You don't need to go into it now, but I'm saying is in the STAR study somewhere, is there a way for me to just go do it?
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
visual. So that's all I need, because then I can find it. I haven't even attempted to search for it yet.
Yeah, I'll send out I meant to send it out with the images and I smelled the wrong file. I can make sure that.
Is there,
Send my data.
it seems to track and logically make sense to me, but I don't know if I was thinking of the right spot, so that was just the visuals. But okay, if it's out there, we'll modify. Or if you can send it, that's great.
And one thing I do not see, but may be implied in one of these 1 through 14s is extending the turn lane, which have been extended from 3 cars to 6 cars in the eastbound bypass to northbound hydraulic at the light. It's still backing up in bypass all the way to the top of the bridge. Every single day.
That other day. Eastbound left turn lane extension.
Bound for the left, and eastbound left turn. Eastbound left turn.
What is it,
Yeah.
triple left mean?
I think
Triple left going southbound off hydraulic.
Well, we're not, I'm looking at northbound because that's what you're going. If you're turning east on the bypass, turning left onto hydraulic, that's north.
Yeah, that's the eastbound.
It would be paired,
Sure.
the eastbound,
Turning left, sure.
the eastbound left turn lane would be extended. And the southbound left turns would be made to a triple left. So you'd have 3 lanes that can turn left, going southbound to eastbound.
Okay, well, I'm glad at least that single lane that.
But doesn't it go into the 3 lanes? How does you have 3 lefts going into 2 lanes?
There's a receiving.
You'd have to have a receiving lane that would merge.
There it is. Yes.
This is just all stroke problems.
Awesome, so you're gonna send that out?
Yeah.
Okay. That would be interesting to see.
And we want that?
It's an alternative. It's an alternative. It's an alternative to evaluate with the public. We're not making a recommendation right now. We're giving public feedback. And then we'll make a recommendation once we finish that.
Okay. And so, when you say you're collecting public feedback, you mean from us right now, or there are surveys out for people?
We're gonna put out a survey. It has not been released yet. It will probably be late July.
Okay.
And when the survey goes out, please share that with all of us so that we can share it with others.
Yes.
We get actually lots of people.
Yeah. Any other questions?
So that brings up. Right. So as a part of this process with the stakeholder group. From the various entities, who is supposed to be distributing this information out so that it reaches the masses? Cause we're gonna do a news release, it'll go out, but individually in the entities, who's communicating with the other board members and like, how is that work?
So typically I will send it out to the study work group. And they will distribute it like through whatever channels they typically will use to distribute it.
So please include in your email the list of the people on the study work group.
Okay.
Now, you're talking about the public shop, like what else is happening?
Yeah, like when the survey goes up, cause Ann asked, she wants to know when the survey goes up so she can distribute it. But I'm thinking in my mind, there should be a point of contact in these entities that once this thing goes live, we should be advocating within the entities, hey, the survey's out here, go get your piece.
So one of the ways that that's built into our board's operating or agenda building is at the end of each meeting, we have board committee report.
There it is, okay.
So this is a place where typically, if we know of a public engagement activity, whether it's a survey, a meeting, it's a time for Ann and I, when we report on our work here, to say X, Y, Z, we'll throw out some things. Sometimes we send additional info on to the other board members if they seem like they're interested in it. But the engagement is also us then publicly saying,
Yes.
share with your constituents that this opportunity is out there.
Perfect.
Does VDOT contact like the city's communications
Right.
director?
I usually just
Yeah.
take that discussion, but
Okay.
you know.
We'll send it to the study work group members and then they'll.
But our communications
Oh, do they?
also distributes it to, yes, your 2 localities communications.
Oh, as far, yeah.
Plus, there's also, at least in pipeline, I'm not sure about stars, there's the social media advertising component. So they're doing, the consultant does a paid advertising campaign, and it's based, geofence based on your.
It'll show up on your
The
Instagram feed and all these ways.
Pop up as an ad.
The other question.
And this is the stuff I love to stick my CAC out, because they'll love the 29 stuff.
Is, when you put that out in the world and you get a bunch of not trained people responding back,
The public,
that's your worst.
uh,
Is there a way to present the information? I don't know, a little in a educational way, not just this is what it could be, but like kind of explaining some of the trade-offs or some of the considerations, or how does the comms department do that? So it's not just gut reaction feedback, but there's an opportunity for people to get a little more out of it before they respond.
I mean, unless we're doing a public meeting, or, we're doing something like a virtual, like, meeting room, meeting space or something like that, I don't know that we have so much control over that. But I think that comes down to how we are providing the descriptions for the alternatives. That's one of the reasons we developed this little star system, so that we can provide some context up front for people to evaluate what is the difference between what will this project do versus this other project. But I'll also say that I'm constantly pretty impressed with the quality of some of the feedback that we get from the public. I mean, I think there are some really thoughtful people, and this is a well-educated area, and I think a lot of people put a lot of thought into it, and I wouldn't say that the public is not taking it seriously and spending the time. I think we get good responses.
Yeah, I'm not saying people don't take it seriously, people just don't have good training to
Sure, and
understand the implications.
But that's what I'm saying. I think there's like a pretty high percentage of the people who take it that do provide really thoughtful, well-informed comments.
And I think too, it's like, this is the first test of this, right? So you go through this part, then you get your real preferred alternative, which you plan to move forward with, and they turn into a small scale potential application. I think there's then another round potentially through informal engagement with the public on how these things pair up together for a larger project and what the overall benefits are. That's the part you don't get from this, because they're individual elements, but multiple elements can be put together and you get different impacts. So I think that this is the first crack at it. We want to figure out that the public will, one, somewhat support it. So if it does turn into an application, you're not getting public outcry once you have invested in an application for a smart scale project.
I still think that obviously there is work that's done to create the storyboards for your public meeting. Those could just be put in the email with the survey, because people can watch them and look at them and learn something and then have a reason to choose. I think that often when people are angriest, it's because they didn't get all the information they needed when they were asked to choose. And so a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. And the other risk is that you go down and discard a whole bunch of things because people didn't understand what the benefits were. And then we've wasted another year, putting up trail in the middle of Route 20. I mean, it's just, we can't do that again.
Well, I think it's up to all of us as staff and you all as elected officials to figure out what meaning to take from the public feedback as well. Because I think if nothing else, the public feedback helps you understand where the points of concern are, to be able to understand, are there ways we can address this, or are these things that we need to, really be thoughtful about before we move forward with our recommendation.
I guess I'm still stunned by the fact that the survey is all about all the work from the bypass out to Boar's Head. Everybody said, oh yeah, we want all 5, roundabouts. That's great, $120 million. Not gonna happen. So, I mean, there's no reality either with what's going out there. So that's gonna have to be dealt with when it gets to the constraint phase. So, sure.
Well, I've done a terrible job tonight managing this meeting today. I'm just gonna alert us all to the time, so. Unsettled. Any other questions on this? Did you have more, Sandy?
No, not unless you want to get there and look at.
I think sending those out because the visual just would be helpful to understand all they're supposed about, right? But it's just.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. All right, fiscal year 24-27 tip adjustments.
All right, everyone, all right, for the tip, these adjustments are presented as information only, no action is required today. We received 2 tip adjustment requests, one from VDOT for the Belmont Bridge Replacement Project and one for DRPT related to our path mobility management program. For the PAC program, these adjustments were related to applications that we submitted for the fiscal year 27 application process with the RPT. So it's just to get those funds into the tip in advance of us getting a contract executed when our funds are awarded. Any questions on either of these?
All right, thank you. The number 5, staff updates. Taylor, still. Staff
Still
report?
me, yes,
Still
yes. So you all have a written report in the packet. I won't take too much more of your time this evening, but a couple things I wanted to highlight. Was that we did submit a Safe Streets and Roads for All application in partnership with Greene County and the Standardsville Volunteer Fire Department to purchase fire and rescue equipment. And then we also worked with Albemarle County staff to support them on an application that they submitted as well. For the Charlottesville Albemarle Regional Transit Authority, just wanted to let you all know about the special meeting that we held on June 5th, where we hosted the new director of DRPT, Maria Zimmerman, and we also had some really good presentations, one from the Central Virginia Transportation Authority and one from DRPT staff on statewide transit funding. We also received the first draft of our regional travel demand model, and we participated in an all-day training with VDOT and consultant staff on that as well. Right now, the model is finishing up a testing phase. So basically, we're working with the consultants and with VDOT to make sure we're not getting any errors when we try to run scenarios and things like that. But it should be available by the end of the month for use. And other than that, the CTD also adopted the 6-year budget for VDOT and DRPT at their June 17th action meeting. And so that includes approval for projects that were in revenue sharing, transportation alternatives. That also includes funding for our PATH program and for the rideshare program at the TJPDC. Right.
Happy to take any questions on any of the other staff report items if you all have any. All right, and then meeting dates. It's all listed. I don't know that we need that. Yes, these are all the meeting days for fiscal year 27 for you all. These are on the 4th Wednesday of the month at your regular time at 4 p.m. The only change is in December to accommodate the winter holiday. So that one is on the 3rd Wednesday. And that'll likely be virtual. That we traditionally made virtual. It's just easier for everyone.
We can send out an updated calendar invite for that one, so it's still at the original date.
Yeah. Any conflicts that you all know of with these dates? Okay.
All right, that will get us to the policy board roundtable. To share updates from your seat. Sandeep, would you like to begin any updates?
Don't have any updates.
And then why don't we turn to VDOT next? That might be any additional items?
I've got construction updates if you want.
Sure.
Albemarle Bundle 2, 240-250 roundabout, hoping to have that finished and accepted by August 1st. They've got drainage work going on, paving and construction of the truck apron. The Rio John Warner roundabout, Belvedere Green T, they're working through right-of-way concerns. Temporary signals should be expected to go live approximately 3 to 4 weeks at Rio Belvedere. Contractors working on erosion control, basin excavation and stuff like that, and they've relocated the multi-use path already. 5th and Old Lynchburg Street roundabout, drainage work is ongoing, currently in phase 1 of the maintenance of traffic, so that project is pursuing. And the 20 and 53 roundabout, we're around the right of way and utilities right now. Fontaine District Avenue bundle, working on right of way plans right now for District Avenue. They're under review, and we're working on the price proposal to facilitate closing the gap in between the 2 projects, the Fontaine Streetscape project and the Fontaine Interchange project. So that work will happen. We're just finalizing how much it's going to cost. Exit 107 Park and Ride is currently underway. Contractors already completed the clearing and grubbing on site. And the Route 29 shared use path, we've got some utility conflicts out there we're working through, but you should see movement on that this summer.
Quick question, and if you know this off the top of your head, great, if you don't, also fine. What is the timeline for the 53 roundabout? Or like, what is it? And
So that is the last element of the bundle based on the stuff that's going on in Montpelier. So that is a future date. I don't have the actual date, but we're waiting for the Montpelier celebration to be done, which we're gonna try to get some utility relocation done in September before their big. Monticello.
so sorry, that stuff is happening in September and then,
I'm not sure when the actual completion date will be, but it's a while.
okay.
That is the last, well, they've got to start, so I'd say at least 18 months to 2 years.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Sean, is there any understanding of, when the projects, the Fontaine interchange and the Fontaine streetscape would move forward? Because I saw Sean Tubbs got a listing about Fontaine being, one way during the summer, during 27 and 28 today. So I don't know if that's.
So they've just started having kickoff meetings regarding that, so I have not seen personally myself a schedule of their operation.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know if that pertained to the construction or if that was.
So I mean, I think a part of that has been floated that we would try to one-way that and have circulation through there, but I have not seen a schedule yet that would indicate when that would happen.
Awesome. Any other questions for John? Stacy, anything there?
No, for me.
Alright, then let's go to, we can do the city and county. Ben, do you have any additional?
Yeah,
items?
I'll just give 2 quick updates. I'll have my annual update to council about transportation planning matters on July 20th. We'll be focused largely on our progress on scoping and mobility plan. And then the other item I'll highlight is if you're coming into the city from the county along Park Street, we have some new bike lanes, climbing lane coming from Melbourne up to north. And then another one in the other direction from 250 up to north. Should make bicycling a little bit easier in that corridor, but if you're coming through there, it's gonna feel a little bit tighter than it has in the past, so. Just be cognizant that changes out there. I'll stick with just those 2.
I want to take the opportunity to publicly thank the TJPDC staff for helping to submit the smart, safe streets and roads for all application, for hydraulic road. We have been working on the smart scale applications and also focused on scoping of the multi-modal plan for the county.
Thank you. We'll go online. Mitch, DRPT. The updates.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Nothing too new from us. I think a lot of our big updates were already announced. The SIP approval, everything like that. So just looking forward to the year ahead and staying in touch with all those STAR studies.
Thank you, sir. Jason, John?
Yeah. Nothing really big to report, Mr. Chair. John is currently, as you might know, running out our mobility on demand study with ADA, and we're piloting that still, and so far everything is going well. Just after that report, wrapping up our fiscal year, end of June. So that's it.
Thank you, sir. Christine, any items outside of MPO, TJPDC? All right, did I miss anybody? All right, thank you. Then we will go to additional matters from the public. Yes, sir. You have 3 minutes. Oh, Peter left, so we're not here.
Paul Brady, just outside of Crozet. I'm sorry my phone went off. I've turned it off 4 times. I don't know what's wrong. Especially, I'm sorry that I missed what Ann said about CTAC. So this is about CTAC. I've been thinking about the demise of the CTAC committee. There has to be some option for the public to present transportation ideas that they have. In 1999 to 2001, approximately, I presented almost 10 ideas for transportation projects to the chart committee, of which Ann was the chairman. I was astonished that one of my ideas made it into the 2025 plan, even though it turned out to be unnecessary. I think part of the problem is that smart scale is a 2-year cycle, and the fact that the MPO only meets every other month in the off years, staff time has something to do with it, as well as retaining committee members who might not meet often in the off years. The other option would be for the MPO to change its bylaws to allow the public to make presentations that are longer than 3 minutes, and during which the MPO can ask questions and interact with the presenter. The problem with that is who chooses what ideas get presented. Again, we are back to a screening committee. In the last public meeting, Chairman Galloway asked me to make a list of the projects I want to present. These are the ones that popped into my head and are in no particular order. Some are just roundabout locations that are fairly expensive, all the way to multi-million-dollar projects. I did not check my old chart committee presentations to see if any more of those were worth representing again, other than the ones I indicated on the list. When Smart Scale was first introduced, it was my impression that if a project scored high enough, then it would be built regardless of the cost. Obviously, that does not seem to be the case, otherwise Crozet would have its Licking Hole Creek Bridge by now. I have a list of 17 ideas. Should I just give it to you, Mr. Galloway, or should I also put it in the minutes?
I think since you're making it as part of public comment, it'll go into the minutes, and then I'll make sure that they provide a copy to me as well.
I have 2 copies, so I can.
Well, you can finish your statement, unless you're finished.
No, I'm finished.
All right, very good.
Except to say that one of my ideas would change a lot of what you all talked about today. Yeah, that's the wrong thing.
Absolutely. Got it.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm not gonna. I started reading them. I'll finish the meeting first. No other public comment, then we will close matters from the public. And then if there is no other business, yes,
Well, for comment, the state budget passed.
they signed it.
We got an alert from David Blunt about 20 minutes ago that it was adopted.
Finally.
So the governor signed.
Cause I knew they were coming back in town, she had amendments that they were gonna have to return to vote on.
That's right.
The headline of the email is state budget adopted.
That was cool.
By the, well, yeah, by the general assembly.
At least she didn't just change her mind and not sign a housing bill because, why not sign something that's bipartisan in this day and age? Have a conference.
That was just a heads up. I know no further information.
Log on, we do our homework now. That's great.
Any other items?
I was just going to report and thank, all of the work done on the 240, 250, 680 roundabout. The 7 years of waiting, had it within a day of the traffic being allowed to go around. Everybody was saying, this is so great. They don't care that they're still coming to the way. They don't care that it's still lumping. The fact that we're not having 110 cars sitting on 240 up to the top of the hill every morning to try to get out is such a blessing. And I thank you all for your work to get it done. We do have a group who wants to plant the center. So Carrie and Sean have provided some guidelines for their application to do that whenever the big guys get done. Then they want to be able to plant something in the middle. But we'll get there on that probably. Thank you very much.
And I will just reiterate that the citizens that live along Hillsdale are thrilled about the roundabout. It has probably been the one item that I constantly get emails on, when's this happening, when's it happening? Because they knew it was coming. So it wasn't even complaint, it was just, could you give us an update on time? So I know that the folks that live right there are appreciative of that. And I'll certainly be giving Carrie her flowers the next time she's in front of our board. All right, well, if there's nothing else, and without objection, we will adjourn to August 26th. 4 p.m. for our in-person meeting, and I beg everybody's forgiveness for going 15 minutes late. Thank you for your commitment.